He's written an op-ed. This is a new strategy offers Trump a much bigger NAFTA win. And Phil, good morning. Thanks so much for coming on the radio.
Great to be with you.
So what's your take on this?
Well, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's three senators have suggested this to President Trump, Senators Cruz, Daines, and Gardner. And what they basically have said is, look, the only bill that could pass Congress this year with only 50 votes that can't be filibustered is going to be the renegotiated NAFTA agreement because there's no budget, so there's not going to be another reconciliation bill like what they used for tax cuts last year. Democrats are filibustering everything. But trade agreements can be submitted under fast track, the Fast Track Trade Promotion Authority law, which means they cannot be filibustered. And so this could be the one chance that the president has to pass major legislation the Democrats cannot filibuster. Maybe the last chance of his presidency, if you think Democrats are going to win the House of Representatives, which seems like a pretty likely outcome. So the only thing that can pass this year with a simple majority in the Senate is a trade agreement. NAFTA is close to being finished with renegotiation. It could be done in time to be voted on this year. And so what Cruz and those other senators have said is, look, let's add a chapter to the NAFTA agreement on competitiveness that focuses on making us more competitive in international trade by permanently removing the permitting and regulatory and other bureaucratic barriers here in the United States so that we can have more trade, more investment, more manufacturing, more resource extraction, and let's look at this as the opportunity to take kind of everything that this administration has done on permitting and regulatory reform and actually get it passed through Congress so the next Democratic president can't just reverse all of it. So that's what they've suggested.
In a nutshell, can you talk about what NAFTA did to the United States, to trade? And what this change, again, in a nutshell, what this change would end up accomplishing?
Well, the original NAFTA agreement was focused on, in the negotiations, we focused on reducing barriers to trade in Canada and Mexico, and they focused on reducing our barriers in the U.S. And so, really the big changes were in the auto industry and in a few other industries. It became much easier to build things in Mexico and bring them into the U.S. Duty-free, and so jobs moved down there, and that became kind of the major one of the major focuses of the president.
And correct me.
And at the same time, there were a lot of positives because we got a lot of agricultural exports also, and that was kind of the main focus was the main focus of the original NAFTA was how can we get these other countries to stop blocking our products, and all three parties were kind of trying to do that.
Would you let me just
focus, but this new chapter, the focus would be, what can we do to knock down the barriers in our own country, the permitting and regulatory barriers, so they don't come back in the next administration.
Would you say that the initial NAFTA agreement certainly did good for all sides? But it certainly benefited countries like Mexico more than it did the United States. Do you agree with that? Certainly benefited their economy.
That's probably true, but they had a lot more. They had a lot more room to benefit because they were a very poor country.
And I have to tell you, I know this is. I was working in rock radio before NAFTA and after NAFTA, and one of the big giveaways we'd always do is, we do a play on you're going to win. We're giving away 1,000.
Pesos,
and it was like $149. Well, then all of a sudden after NAFTA we tried to do that and we couldn't do it anymore. It just was too much money there. So so you feel this is the big opportunity. If he goes down this road, this is the big opportunity for the president.
Well, I see it as really the only potential vehicle that could pass Congress this year with any major policy changes of any significance in it. It's the only thing the Democrats can't filibuster. And so I would just urge the president to be as ambitious as possible in terms of what gets loaded in there and go for it.
Phil, I want to ask you one final to look into your crystal ball. Does he have to get this done before the midterms? Is the midterms? Are we looking at a Democratic wave? Do you think?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a Democratic wave or if it's going to be a follow through on the realignment that we saw in the presidential election and some of these red states that currently have Democratic senators might elect Republicans at the same time that college whites are voting Democrat, and so you could potentially have a split verdict where Republicans gain a few seats in the Senate but lose the House. But I do think the House is in great danger right now.
However, in this climate, predicting is if you're
who knows? It could change 5 times between now and November.
There's no doubt about it. You just cannot predict anything right now. All right, Phil, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
All right, Phil Kerpen.